To the members of the Cowessess community and Treaty 4 communities, we are sorry. It was something that we cannot undo in the past, but we can pledge ourselves every day to fix in the present and into the future.
An apology from the Prime Minister today in response to the discovery of hundreds of unmarked graves near the site of a former residential school in Saskatchewan. Justin Trudeau said he spoke with the chief of the Cowessess First Nation and offered the federal government support to the communities grieving. I had the opportunity to connect with Chief Delorme earlier today and ask him about how he's feeling in this moment and his message to Canadians. Chief Delorme, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ian.
You've had a couple of days now, I guess, to process this latest news. So on this Friday, how are you and your community doing?
Today I'm following up with some of my citizens, members that are survivors of residential school. Yesterday was very heavy on them. As a spokesperson for Cowessess First Nation, the message I delivered yesterday was heartbreaking to many, opening eyes for some. So this morning, the work continues. We are still working on confirming our numbers and making sure the mental, emotional support is there for all that this may have triggered.
I read a story, Chief, where you were quoted as saying, "We always knew the graves were there." What changed then once you got the results of this ground radar?
As a kid, I grew up on Cowessess, and we were always told, "Stay on the path. That there's unmarked graves here." And just being a kid, we just listened and did what we were told. And when we started this in June, we bought a pack of 200 flags. I estimated, I was saying maybe 200 to 300. And after the second day, we ran out of our flags, and we still had a lot of square meters to go over. So as we started to do more and more and more, started to get more emotional, and people started to show up and like, what are all these flags? And trying to explain to the community and passerbyers, it was getting very heavy and emotional. And when we finished, that number was just heartbreaking. And when we were doing the search, we started a 2 meter by 2 meter. And one of our locals that is an expert in this, her name is Barb, she said, let's do 1 meter by 1 meter. And we started to pick up more. And, just the size of 1 meter by 1 meter made us realize that these are probably not adults under here right now. So it just, it's really just pulls at the emotional, mental side of even myself.
For the people who are watching right now across the country, many of them not Indigenous, what's your message to them?
From a First Nation perspective, I love living in Canada. I went to university. I grew up on Cowessess. I have the best job I think I've ever wanted, is being chief. It's not an easy task. But there is a accidental racism and ignorance in this country when it comes to history. Indigenous people, and I'm speaking from Cowessess perspective, we don't want to live in our current state. We want to be a part of the economy. We want to be a part of the growth, the social lives. But sometimes in this country, being Indigenous, it's as if you got to prove yourself a little more, or it's just so you're so used of seeing maybe someone asking for change and being Indigenous, and there's a story behind every one of the history that we inherited. So my comment to everybody listening is, from Cowessess, we're not asking for pity. We're asking for understanding. We're asking that you stand beside us, that as we are gaining our control again as Indigenous people in our treaty relationship, that we have better understanding, that our kids going to school understand the impact residential school made, but also even what great economy the Indigenous people had prior to treaty. And this country would be so much more well off when Indigenous ideology and understanding is welcomed in and not just brought in on certain days of the year.
One last thing, Chief. There has been a debate raging among some Canadians in the last few days about Canada Day. And some people are saying that we should cancel Canada Day, given discoveries like the one at your First Nation. What's your view on that?
I would never tell somebody what to and what not to celebrate. You know, in 2021, we all inherited this. Nobody today created residential schools. Nobody today created the Indian Act. Nobody today created 60 Scoop. But we all inherited this. And if we want to say we're proud Canadians, then we will accept the beautiful country we have today, and we will accept what we all inherited. And what I would challenge is everybody on Canada Day in this country, if you say you're a proud Canadian, read the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. The over 100,000 residential school survivors told their story, including my parents, and they created the Truth and Reconciliation calls to action. Bring that into your personal life, your social life, your business life, and read the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls calls to action. There's 231 calls to action. And if we can all own those a little bit in this country, in one generation, we would overcome so many challenges today that our next generation won't inherit this. We will make them more as dreamers.
It's really nice hearing your perspective, and I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, Chief. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian.